I, 26F, stood at the altar with my fiancé, Mark, 28M. The room was full of flowers and quiet smiles. The officiant had just reached the part about anyone having objections. It was usually just a formality. A small, funny pause before the happy ending. But then a voice cut through the air. It was sharp and loud. It was Mark's mother, Eleanor. "I object," she said. A gasp went through the room. My heart stopped. I looked at Mark. His face was a mask of confusion. He turned to his mother. She was standing up in the front row, her face hard as stone. "Mom, what are you doing?" Mark asked. His voice was a strained whisper. Eleanor ignored him. She looked directly at me. Her eyes were cold. "This wedding cannot happen," she announced to everyone. "Not until Mark knows who you really are." The silence that followed was heavy. It felt like no one was breathing. I could feel every eye in the room on me. My cheeks burned with shame. I did not know what she was talking about. I had no dark secrets. My life was simple. My family was normal. "Eleanor, please sit down," Mark's father said, his voice low and embarrassed. But she would not be stopped. "No," she said. "He deserves to know the truth about her and her family, the lies they have been hiding." I wanted to say something, to defend myself, but my throat was tight. What lies? What was she talking about? I looked at my own parents. My mother looked horrified. But it was my father's face that truly scared me. He was not angry. He was not confused. He was terrified. His hands were shaking, not just a little tremble. He was visibly shaking, his knuckles white as he gripped the pew in front of him. He looked at me, and his eyes were full of a panic I had never seen before. That was when I knew. This was not just Eleanor being cruel. She knew something. Or she thought she knew something. And whatever it was breaking my father apart right in front of me. The perfect day I had dreamed of was turning into a nightmare. My own father's fear told me this was real. The officiant cleared his throat, a nervous sound that echoed in the silent church. "Perhaps we should take a brief pause," he suggested, looking helplessly between Mark, me, and Eleanor. Mark finally found his voice again, stronger this time. "Mom, this is not the time or the place," he said, taking a step toward her. "You are making a scene." "A scene is necessary when a deception is this big," Eleanor shot back. She did not raise her voice, but her words were like ice. "I am trying to protect you, Mark. From her. From them." She gestured vaguely towards my parents. My father flinched as if she had struck him. His shaking got worse. My mother put a hand on his arm, trying to steady him, but he seemed lost in his own world of fear. I finally managed to speak. My voice was small, barely a whisper. "Eleanor, what are you talking about? There are no lies." She gave a short, ugly laugh. "Oh, really? Are you going to stand there in that white dress and pretend your family is something it is not? Pretend your father is a man he is not?" Each word was a hammer blow. Why was she focused on my father? He was the kindest, most gentle man I knew. He had worked hard his entire life to provide for us. He was respected. He was quiet and humble. What could she possibly have on him? I looked at him again, pleading with my eyes for him to say something, to deny it, to fight back. But he just stared at the floor, his shoulders slumped in defeat. He looked like a man waiting for a sentence to be carried out. The guests were murmuring now. The quiet whispers felt like shouts. I could feel their pity and their curiosity. My special day had become a public spectacle, a drama for them to watch unfold. The flowers seemed to wilt. The sunlight coming through the stained glass windows felt harsh and exposing. "That's enough," I said, my voice gaining a little strength. I am now in a state of shock, my mind racing. This is not happening. This cannot be real. You will not stand here and attack my father. "I am not attacking him. I am revealing the truth," Eleanor said. her voice dripping with false concern. Mark has a right to know what kind of family he is marrying into. A family built on a foundation of failure and deceit. Failure? Deceit? The words made no sense. My father was a successful accountant. He owned his own small firm. We were not wealthy, but we were comfortable. We were honest people. This was a fantasy she had invented. It had to be. But then I looked at my dad again. He had closed his eyes. A single tear traced a path down his cheek. He was not fighting back because he believed he had nothing to fight with. He believed he was guilty of whatever she was accusing him of. The sight of his pain was more than I could bear. My own hurt and humiliation faded away, replaced by a cold, protective anger. This was not about me anymore. This was about him. "We are leaving," I said to Mark. I did not wait for his answer. I turned and walked down the aisle, my wedding dress trailing behind me like a sad white flag. I did not look at the guests. I did not look at Eleanor. I walked straight to my father, took his shaking hand, and pulled him to his feet. "Come on, Dad," I whispered. "We are going home." He followed me without a word, his head still bowed. My mother came with us, her face a mixture of anger and worry. As we walked out of the church, leaving behind the confused guests, the stunned officiant, and my horrified fiancé, I heard Eleanor's voice one last time, triumphant and clear. "You see, Mark? She runs because she cannot face the truth." I did not run because of the truth. I ran because I could not stand to see my father so broken, and I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I would not rest until I found out how Eleanor had done this to him, and I would make her pay for it. The wedding was over, but a new fight was just beginning. The car ride home was silent and heavy. My father stared out the window, his face pale and drawn. My mother sat in the back, quietly crying. I was driving, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. The beautiful white dress felt like a costume from a play that had gone horribly wrong. All I wanted was to tear it off. When we got to my parents' house, the house I grew up in, my father went straight to his study and closed the door. He did not say a word. "Let him be for a little while," my mother said, her voice thick with tears. "He is so ashamed." "Ashamed of what?" I asked, finally letting my own anger show. What did he do that was so terrible? What could Eleanor possibly know? My mother shook her head. "It is not my story to tell, sweetheart. It is his. It is old history. It should have stayed buried." "Well, Eleanor dug it up," I said bitterly. "She brought a shovel to my wedding and dug it all up in front of everyone." My phone started buzzing. It was Mark. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. A text message, then another, and another. I turned the phone off. I could not talk to him right now. I did not know what to say. Was he angry with me? Did he believe his mother? The thought sent a fresh wave of pain through me. I went up to my old bedroom and changed out of my wedding dress. I folded it carefully and put it back in its box. It felt like I was putting away a dream that had died. I put on a pair of jeans and a simple sweater. I needed to feel like myself again, not the humiliated bride. A few hours later, there was a knock on the front door. My mother opened it. It was Mark. He looked tired and stressed. "I need to see her," he said to my mother. My mom let him in. He found me in the living room, sitting on the couch and staring at nothing. "Are you okay?" he asked, sitting down next to me. "No, Mark, I am not okay," I said, my voice flat. "Your mother just destroyed my wedding and accused my father of being a liar in front of 200 people. How could I possibly be okay?" "I know," he said, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away. "I am so sorry. I had no idea she was going to do that. I am so sorry." "Why did she do it?" I asked. "What does she have against my family?" "Against my father?" Mark sighed. "She has always been protective. She thinks you are not. I do not know. She thinks your family is not on our level or something. It is ridiculous. I have told her that a million times. Not on your level? I repeated, the insult stinging. Because we do not live in a giant house and belong to a country club? It is not about that, he said, though we both knew it was. She got some idea in her head. She hired a private investigator. I stared at him, shocked. She did what? She hired someone to dig up dirt on my family? I did not know until today, he said quickly. She told me on the way to the church. She said she had found something out. Something she had to share. I told her not to. I begged her not to. But she would not listen. She said she was doing it for my own good. I felt a cold fury settle in my stomach. A private investigator. This was not a spur-of-the-moment act of cruelty. It was premeditated. She had been planning this. She wanted to destroy me. What did she find, Mark? I asked. What is this terrible secret my father is hiding? She would not tell me the details, he said, looking away. She just said he was a fraud, that his business, his whole life, was built on a lie. She said he went bankrupt years ago and hid it from everyone. The word hung in the air between us. Bankrupt. It sounded so harsh, so final. I thought of my father, working late nights at his desk, always so careful with money, always teaching me the value of $1. It did not make sense. Even if that were true, I said slowly, trying to process it. That happened years ago? Before I was even born, probably. Why would that matter now? Why would she use that to humiliate him? Because she is cruel, Mark said, his voice filled with a rare anger towards his mother. Because she wanted to hurt you. And she knew this was the way to do it. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. I do not care about any of this. I love you. It does not matter what happened in your father's past. I want to be with you. We can go to the courthouse tomorrow. We can still get married. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to fall into his arms and let him make it all better. But something held me back. His mother had just declared war on my family. Marrying him felt like walking into enemy territory. And there was a part of me that was angry with him too. He was her son. Why had he never been able to control her? Why had he let her treat me with such thinly veiled contempt for so long? I cannot think about that right now, I said. I need to talk to my dad. I need to know the truth. Okay, he said, standing up. I understand, but please, know that I am on your side. It is you and me, not her. I nodded, but I was not so sure. He left, and the house was quiet again. I knew what I had to do. I walked to the study and knocked on the door. Dad? I said softly. Can I come in? There was a long pause. Then I heard his voice, muffled and weak. Come in. I opened the door. He was sitting in his leather chair behind his big wooden desk. The room was dark, except for a small lamp. There were papers scattered on the desk, but he was not looking at them. He was just staring at his hands. He looked older than he had that morning. He looked defeated. I pulled up a chair and sat across from him. For a long time, neither of us spoke. I did not want to push him. I wanted him to tell me when he was ready. Finally, he took a deep breath. She was right, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Everything she said. It was true. What was true, Dad? I asked gently. He looked up at me, and his eyes were filled with a shame so deep it hurt to see. I failed, he said. A long time ago, I had a business with a partner, my best friend. We built it from the ground up. It was a construction company. We were doing well, very well. And then he betrayed me. He was cooking the books, stealing money from the company for years. By the time I found out, it was too late. The company was drowning in debt. We lost everything. He paused, swallowing hard. I had to declare bankruptcy. I lost the business. I lost my house. I lost all my savings. I was 28 years old with a wife and a baby on the way. You. And I had nothing. I was a complete and utter failure. I listened, my heart aching for the young man he had been. This was not the story of a fraud. This was the story of a tragedy. You are not a failure, Dad, I said fiercely. You were betrayed. That is not the same thing. It felt the same, he said, shaking his head. The shame was overwhelming. I felt like everyone was looking at me, judging me. My family, my friends. I could not bear it. So we moved. We left our hometown, came here, and started over. I went back to school, became an accountant. I built a new life. I never told anyone what happened. Not even you. I wanted to protect you from it. I wanted you to be proud of me. I did not want you to have a father who was a failure. I have always been proud of you, I said, my voice choked with emotion. You built a new life from nothing. You took care of us. You gave us everything. That is not failure, Dad. That is the strongest thing I have ever heard. He looked at me, a flicker of something other than shame in his eyes. But she found out. After all these years. How did she find out? That was the question. The private investigator explained the what, but not the how. How did the investigator know where to even look? Bankruptcies are public record, but you need to know what you are looking for. A name, a place, a time. Eleanor's investigator had a lead, and I had a sickening feeling I knew where it came from. Someone must have told her, Dad, I said. Someone who knew the story. He frowned. But who? Very few people know. My parents are gone. Your mother's family never knew the details. My old partner. He passed away years ago. What about your brother? I asked. Uncle Robert, my dad's younger brother. There had always been a strange tension between them. A quiet resentment from my uncle that I never understood. My dad's face went pale. Robert? No, he would not. Why would he? I do not know, I said. But he is the only one who makes sense. A new resolve hardened inside me. My father was not a villain. He was a victim. First of a business partner, and now of Eleanor and whoever helped her. My anger, which had been a simmering coal, now blazed into a fire. Eleanor wanted to expose my family's secret. Fine. I would expose hers. I would find out exactly how she did this, and I would use it to burn her world to the ground. She thought she had won. She had no idea what she had just started. The next day, I called my Uncle Robert. My voice was calm and steady. I did not want to give anything away. Hi, Uncle Robert, I said. I know this is a terrible time, but I was hoping I could talk to you. Oh, sweetheart, of course, he said, his voice oozing a fake sympathy that made my skin crawl. I heard what happened. It is just awful. That woman, Eleanor, she is a monster. To do that to your father. It was terrible, I agreed. The things she said about Dad, they were so specific. It was almost like she had heard the story from someone who was actually there. There was a slight pause on the other end of the line. Well, these private investigators, you know, they can dig up anything these days. It is frightening what they can find. I suppose, I said. It is just so strange. She talked about Dad's old business partner, a man named Frank. I do not think I have ever even heard that name before. It is such an old detail. It is funny, the way she said it reminded me of the story you told me once, years ago, about how Dad was too trusting in business. The silence on the line was longer this time. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head. I do not recall that conversation, he said, his voice a little tighter now. Really? I said, feigning surprise. I remember it clearly. We were at Grandma's house for Christmas. You said Dad always saw the best in people, even when he should not. You said it cost him dearly once. I may have said something like that, he admitted reluctantly. It is true. Your father is a very trusting man. Yes, he is, I said. and now my voice had a cold edge to it. He trusts his family. He trusts his brother. He would never believe his own brother would betray him. He did not say anything. He knew he was caught. "How could you, Uncle Robert?" I asked, my voice breaking with a fresh wave of hurt. "How could you do that to him? To me?" "I did not mean for this to happen," he said quickly, his voice a panicked rush. "I never thought she would do that. I met her at a charity function a few months ago. We got to talking. She mentioned Mark was marrying you. She was asking questions about your family. She seemed so nice, so concerned." "Concerned?" I scoffed. "She was digging for dirt and you handed her a shovel." "She was worried about Mark," he insisted, his voice growing defensive. "She said she wanted to make sure your family was stable. I only told her a little bit. I told her David had some business troubles in the past. That is all. I thought it would just— I do not know. Make her see that you are not from some perfect, untouchable family. I thought it would make you seem more human to her." "You thought telling her my father's most painful secret would help me?" I asked, my voice dripping with disbelief. "Or did you just enjoy having a little power over him for once? Did you enjoy knocking him off the pedestal you think he lives on?" He was silent. That was my answer. It was jealousy. Plain and simple. My father had rebuilt his life, found success, raised a family. And my uncle, who had always struggled, had resented him for it. He saw a chance to bring my dad down a peg, and he took it. "She paid you, did not she?" I asked, a sudden, sickening thought occurring to me. "No," he said, his voice full of outrage. But it sounded fake. "Of course not. It was just a conversation." I did not believe him, but I had what I needed for now. I had his confession. It was a start. "You are going to fix this," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "You are going to tell my father what you did, and then you are going to help me expose Eleanor for the manipulative snake she is." "I cannot do that," he stammered. "She will be furious. She is a powerful woman." "You should be more worried about me," I said, and then I hung up the phone. My next call was to my best friend, Sarah. She had been my maid of honor, and she had witnessed the entire disaster. I told her everything. About my dad's past, about my uncle's betrayal. "Oh my God," she said, her voice full of fury on my behalf. "Your uncle? That is just evil. And Eleanor hiring a private investigator? This is next-level crazy." "I know," I said, pacing back and forth in my room. "But I feel like I am finally starting to see clearly. All this time, I was trying to win Eleanor over. I was trying to be the perfect daughter-in-law. I was playing her game, but I am done playing." "What are you going to do?" Sarah asked. "I am going to destroy her," I said simply. "She wanted to play dirty. Now she is going to see how I play." "Okay, Black Widow," Sarah said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "I am in. What is the plan?" "First, I need to get Mark completely on my side," I said. "He says he is, but he is still her son. He is still programmed to defend her. I need to show him irrefutable proof of who she really is. And I need to get proof that she paid my uncle. I know she did." "How are you going to do that?" "I have an idea," I said, a plan starting to form in my mind. "Eleanor thinks she holds all the cards. She thinks my family is weak and that we will just crawl away and hide. She's about to find out how wrong she is." The first step was to deal with my uncle. I knew he would not confess to my father on his own. He was a coward, so I had to force his hand. I drove to his house that evening. He was not happy to see me. "What do you want?" he asked, blocking the doorway. "We need to talk," I said, pushing past him into the house. "And you need to listen." I laid it all out for him. How he had betrayed his brother's trust. How he had sold out his own family for what? A moment of petty satisfaction? I told him about the pain he had caused. the humiliation my father felt. I did not yell. I kept my voice calm and even, which I think scared him more. I want you to call Eleanor, I said when I was finished. Right now, while I am here. What? Why? He asked, his eyes wide with fear. You are going to tell her that my father is threatening to sue her for slander, I said. You are going to tell her that he has hired a lawyer, and they are going to subpoena her bank records to prove she paid you for the information. You are going to sound panicked. You are going to tell her she needs to help you. She will kill me, he whispered. She can get in line, I said coldly. Make the call, Uncle Robert, or I will be the one calling a lawyer, and I will tell them all about your little arrangement. He stared at me for a long moment. He saw the look in my eyes. He knew I was not bluffing. With a shaky hand, he picked up his phone and dialed. I stood next to him, listening to every word. The conversation was exactly what I had hoped for. He was panicked and whiny. Eleanor was at first dismissive, then annoyed, then finally worried. He cannot prove anything, she said, her voice sharp through the phone's speaker. He can try, Robert whined. And if they look at my accounts, they will see the transfer. I told you it was a bad idea to send it directly from your personal account. Bingo. The confirmation I needed. My heart beat a little faster. It was the first piece of solid evidence. Do not be a fool, Robert, Eleanor snapped. Just deny everything. It is your word against his. Now do not call me again. She hung up. My uncle looked at me, his face slick with sweat. Are you happy now? He asked bitterly. No, I said. But it is a start. Now for the next part. You are coming with me to my parents' house, and you are going to tell my father everything. He tried to argue, but he had no fight left in him. He knew he had lost. He followed me out to my car like a man being led to the gallows. The confrontation between the two brothers was one of the most painful things I have ever had to witness. My father did not yell. He did not rage. He just looked at his brother with a profound and deep sadness. Why, Robert? He asked, his voice quiet. After all these years, why? My uncle finally broke down. He cried and apologized, making excuses about his own failures and his jealousy. It was pathetic to watch. In the end, my father did not forgive him. He did not condemn him either. He just looked at him with weary eyes. I think you should go now, he said. My uncle left, a smaller man than he had been when he arrived. The betrayal had been exposed, and it had cost him the last shred of his family's respect. One down, one to go. Now I had to deal with Mark. I needed to show him what his mother had done, in a way he could not deny or explain away. I had a recording of the phone call between my uncle and Eleanor. I had my uncle's confession. It was time to show Mark the truth. I invited him over that night. I did not tell him why. When he arrived, I asked him to sit down. I looked him in the eyes. I love you, Mark, I said, but I need to know where you stand. Truly, is it with me or is it with your mother? Of course it is with you, he said, looking confused. I told you that. Then you need to listen to this, I said. I played the recording of the phone call. His face grew paler and paler as he listened. He heard his mother's cold, dismissive voice. He heard my uncle admit that she had paid him. He heard her tell him to lie. When it was over, he was silent for a long time. He just stared at the floor. She paid him, he said finally, his voice hollow. She paid him to hurt your father. Yes, I said. And she lied to me, he continued, looking up at me, his eyes full of hurt. She told me she was just worried. She told me she was protecting me. She was protecting herself, I said. She wanted to drive us apart because she does not think I am good enough for you. She was willing to destroy my family to get what she wanted. He stood up and started pacing the room. He was angry. I had never seen him this angry before. It was a raw, real anger, not his usual frustration. All my life, he said, his voice shaking. All my life, I have made excuses for her. She is difficult. She is controlling. She is just being a mom. But this is different. This is evil. He stopped pacing and looked at me. What do you want to do? I want to confront her, I said. But not alone. I want you there. I want my parents there. I want your father there. I want everyone to hear the truth all at once. I want her to have nowhere to hide. Okay, he said without hesitation. We will do it. When? Tomorrow, I said. I am not waiting another day. The next day felt like the longest of my life. Mark arranged the meeting at his parents' house. He told them it was about planning the rescheduled wedding. It was a lie, but a necessary one. Eleanor would never have agreed to a meeting if she knew its true purpose. My parents and I drove over together. My dad was nervous, but there was a new strength in his eyes. The truth was out, and he was no longer hiding. He was ready to face his accuser. My mom held his hand the whole way. We walked into the large, formal living room. Eleanor and her husband, George, were already there. George was a quiet man who was usually overshadowed by his wife. He gave us a polite, if awkward, smile. Eleanor, on the other hand, did not bother to hide her disdain. She looked at me as if I were something she had scraped off her shoe. Well, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Look what the cat dragged in. I am surprised you have the nerve to show your face here. We are here to talk, Eleanor, I said, keeping my voice level. I have nothing to say to you, she sneered. That is a shame, I said, because I have a lot to say to you. Mark stepped forward, positioning himself next to me. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world. It was a clear signal of where his loyalties lay. Mom, we need to talk about what happened at the wedding, he said, his voice firm. Eleanor scoffed. I did you a favor, Mark. I saved you from making a terrible mistake. No, Mark said. You did not save me. You tried to manipulate me, you lied to me, and you paid a man to hurt this family. Eleanor's smug expression faltered for a second. She glanced nervously at her husband. I do not know what you are talking about. I think you do, I said. I took out my phone and played the recording. The room was silent except for the sound of my uncle's panicked voice and Eleanor's cold, incriminating words. George's face hardened as he listened. He looked at his wife, and for the first time I saw a flicker of something other than passive acceptance in his eyes. It was disgust. When the recording ended, Eleanor was ashen. That is taken out of context, she stammered. He is a liar. That man is a liar. My uncle is a lot of things, I said. He is a coward and a traitor, but he is not the only one. You preyed on his weakness. Eleanor, you used his jealousy to get what you wanted. You did not care who you hurt along the way. Then my father spoke. His voice was not loud, but it commanded the room. Everyone turned to look at him. You took the worst day of my life, Eleanor, he said, his voice trembling with a controlled emotion. You took a time of great pain and shame, and you twisted it into a weapon to hurt my daughter. The story you told was not the truth. The truth is that I was betrayed by a man I trusted, and I lost everything. But I did not lie about it. I did not hide. I rebuilt. I worked hard every single day to provide for my family and to become a man my daughter could be proud of. I am not ashamed of what I overcame. I am proud of it. The only shame in this room is you. The silence that followed was absolute. Eleanor looked around the room, searching for an ally, but there were none. Her husband was looking at her with cold disappointment. Her son was looking at her with a mixture of anger and pity. My mother and I stood with my father, a united front. She was completely and utterly alone. She tried one last time to defend herself, turning to Mark. He is turning you against me, she said, her voice shrill. They are all manipulating you. Mark shook his head slowly. No, Mom, you did this. You have been doing this for years, pushing people away, trying to control everything. I am done. I am done letting you run my life. I am done letting you hurt the people I love. He took my hand. We are going to get married. A small wedding, with just our real family and friends. You are not invited. Eleanor stared at him, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. The idea of being excluded, of losing her place of honor at her son's wedding, was clearly a shock. And that is not all, I added, my voice cold as ice. You will have no relationship with our children. You will not be a grandmother to them. You will not be in their lives. You have shown us who you are, and we will not expose our children to that kind of toxicity. This is the consequence of your actions, Eleanor. You wanted to destroy my family. Instead, you have destroyed your own. George finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but firm. She is right, Eleanor. This has gone too far. You need to apologize. You need to fix this. Apologize? Eleanor shrieked, her composure finally shattering. To them? Never. Then you leave me no choice, George said, his voice full of regret. He looked at my parents. I am so deeply sorry for my wife's behavior. There is no excuse for it. Then he looked at Eleanor. We will be going to counseling, Eleanor. And if you refuse or if you do not change, then I think we need to consider some time apart. The threat of losing her husband, her status, her comfortable life, finally seemed to hit her. She stared at him, speechless. The fight was gone. She looked small and defeated. We did not wait for her response. We had said what we came to say. Let's go, I said to my family. We turned and walked out of the house, leaving Eleanor standing in the middle of her perfect living room, her perfect life crumbling around her. As we walked to the car, my dad put his arm around my shoulders. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You defended my honor. You gave me my pride back. I leaned my head on his shoulder. You never lost it, Dad, I said. A few weeks later, Mark and I got married. It was a small ceremony at a beautiful public garden. Just our parents, my mom and dad, Mark's dad, and a few close friends. Sarah was my maid of honor again. My uncle was not there. Eleanor was not there. It was a perfect day, full of love and laughter. There were no secrets, no lies, just the truth. We heard through George that Eleanor had agreed to go to therapy. He was hopeful, but cautious. He apologized again for everything, and he was making a real effort to build a relationship with me and my parents. He was a good man who had been trapped in a bad situation for too long. A year passed. Mark and I were happy. We bought a small house. My dad's business was thriving. He seemed lighter, freer, now that his old secret was no longer hanging over him. He even started telling his story to others, not as a tale of failure, but as one of resilience. He was helping other small business owners who were struggling. He had turned his greatest shame into his greatest strength. One day, we received a letter in the mail. It was from Eleanor. I almost threw it away, but Mark wanted to read it. It was not an apology. It was a long, rambling letter full of self-pity and blame. She blamed my uncle for misleading her. She blamed her husband for not supporting her. She blamed me for turning her son against her. It was the letter of a woman who had learned nothing. Mark read it, his face sad. She will never change, he said. No, I said. She will not. He crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. We never spoke of her again. Our boundary was firm. She had made her choice, and we had made ours. Sometimes I think back to that awful day at the church. Eleanor stood up and said she wanted Mark to know who I really was. And in the end, she got her wish. Everyone found out who the people in that room really were. My father was a man of incredible strength. My husband was a man of integrity. My uncle was a weak man who paid the price for his jealousy. And I was a woman who would do anything to protect the people I love. And Eleanor? Everyone found out who she really was, too. a cruel, lonely woman who had built her life on control and fear. She had tried to expose a secret to ruin us, but all she did was expose herself. And she would have to live with that truth, all alone, for the rest of her life. That was her real consequence. And it was more satisfying than any revenge I could have ever planned. The months following our small, perfect wedding were peaceful. It felt like a long, deep breath after nearly drowning. Mark and his father, George, came over for dinner regularly. At first, it was a little strange without Eleanor there. The space she used to occupy with her sharp comments and controlling presence was now filled with quiet, easy conversation. George seemed like a different person. He laughed more. He told stories about his childhood, about how he met Eleanor when they were young. He spoke of her with a kind of sad nostalgia, like someone remembering a person who was no longer there. She was not always like this, he told us one evening, swirling the wine in his glass. She was vibrant, full of life. But somewhere along the way, she got scared. Scared of not being good enough, of not having enough. And that fear turned into a need for control. I listened, but I felt no sympathy. Fear was not an excuse for cruelty. My own father had known deep fear, the fear of failure and poverty, but it had made him kind and careful, not bitter and malicious. My relationship with my dad had transformed. We had always been close, but now there was a new depth to our connection. The secret he had carried for so long had been a wall between us, a wall I never even knew existed. Now that it was gone, I felt like I was finally seeing all of him. He was not just the steady, reliable father I had always known. He was a man who had fallen and gotten back up, stronger than before. He and my mother started going on dates again, like they were young and in love. They took a trip to Italy, something they had talked about for years but never did. It was as if a weight had been lifted from their entire marriage. My mom told me once, in a quiet moment, I never knew how much space that secret was taking up in our lives until it was gone. My Uncle Robert tried to reach out a few times. He sent birthday cards with cash inside, which I sent back. He called my father, leaving long, rambling voicemails full of apologies and excuses. My dad never called him back. I do not hate him. My father explained to me. I just do not have a place for him in my life anymore. Trust is like a mirror. Once it is shattered, you can piece it back together, but you will always see the cracks. Mark and I were busy building our own life. We painted our new house, planted a garden in the backyard. We adopted a clumsy golden retriever and named him Gus. Our life was simple and happy. The drama with Eleanor felt like something that had happened to other people, in another lifetime. But sometimes there were reminders. We would run into one of her friends at the grocery store, and they would give me a cold, pitying look. We received a wedding invitation from one of Mark's cousins, and we knew we would have to see her. We do not have to go, Mark said, seeing the look on my face. No, I said. We are going. We are not going to hide. We did nothing wrong. The wedding was at the country club Eleanor belonged to. It was her territory. Walking in felt like stepping into the lion's den. We could feel the whispers and the stares as we found our table. People who had known Mark his whole life now looked at us with a mixture of curiosity and judgment. They had only heard Eleanor's side of the story, a twisted narrative where she was the victim, and I was the wicked homewrecker who had stolen her son. We were polite but distant. We congratulated the happy couple, had a single glass of champagne, and were planning our escape when she appeared. Eleanor was standing by the bar, talking to a group of her friends. She looked thinner, and there were new lines around her mouth. She saw us, and her smile faltered. For a moment, she looked like she was going to turn away, but then her pride took over. She straightened her shoulders and walked towards us, her friends trailing behind her like a royal court. "Mark," she said, her voice bright and false. "I did not know you were coming." "Hello, Mom," Mark said, his voice neutral. He did not move to hug her. She turned her gaze to me. Her eyes were as cold as ever. "Hello," she said. The word clipped. "Eleanor," I replied, giving a small, polite nod. An awkward silence fell. Her friends were watching, waiting for the drama to unfold. I could see the disappointment in their eyes when it did not. "You look well," Mark said, trying to be civil for the sake of his cousin. "I am fine," she said. Then she added with a pointed look at me, "Some of us know how to handle adversity with grace." I refused to take the bait. I just smiled a small, serene smile. My happiness was my best defense. She hated seeing me happy. She hated seeing that her grand plan had failed. We were not broken. We were stronger than ever. "It was good to see you, Mom," Mark said, taking my hand. "We were just leaving." "So soon?" she asked, a hint of her old manipulative tone creeping back into her voice. "You just got here. Do not you want to say hello to your family?" "I have," he said simply. He looked at me. "Ready to go?" "Yes," I said. We walked away, leaving her standing there, fuming. As we left the ballroom, I could hear one of her friends ask, "Is that the girl who—" I did not hear the rest. It did not matter. In the car, Mark was quiet. "I am sorry," he said finally. "You have nothing to be sorry for," I told him. "You were perfect." "It just makes me so angry," he said, hitting the steering wheel with the palm of his hand. "The way they all look at you. The way she still tries to play the victim. After everything she did." "Let her," I said. "It does not matter what they think. We know the truth. And look at us, Mark. We are happy. She is miserable. We won." He looked at me, and his angry expression softened. He reached over and took my hand. "You are right," he said. "We won." 2 years after our wedding, I found out I was pregnant. We were overjoyed. We told my parents first. My dad cried, happy tears this time. He hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "A grandfather," he kept saying, a look of pure wonder on his face. The question of what to do about Eleanor loomed over us. A baby changes things. The boundary we had set, no contact, suddenly felt more complicated. "She is still his grandmother," I said to Mark one night as we were painting the nursery. "She is," he agreed, not looking at me. "But she has not earned the right to be in our child's life. Has she changed? Has she apologized? Has she even tried to make things right?" The answer was no. We had heard from George that the therapy had not gone well. Eleanor went to a few sessions, complained that the therapist was siding with everyone else, and quit. She and George were living in the same house, but they were like strangers. He had his life, and she had hers. "I could call her," Mark said hesitantly. "I could tell her about the baby. Maybe this will be the thing that finally gets through to her." I was doubtful, but I saw the hope in his eyes. Despite everything, she was still his mother. A small part of him would always want her back. "Okay," I said. "You can call her. But Mark, we have to be a team on this. If she starts making demands or trying to manipulate the situation, we shut it down. Immediately." "Agreed," he said. He called her the next day. I sat in the room with him, holding my breath. I could only hear his side of the conversation. "Hi, Mom. I am fine. Yes, it has been a while. I have some news. We are having a baby. Yes, you are going to be a grandmother." There was a long pause. I saw Mark's face fall. "No, Mom," he said, his voice tired. "No, that is not going to happen. Because you have not earned it. An apology would be a start. No, not an apology for being a concerned mother. An apology for hiring a private investigator, for paying my wife's uncle to betray her family, and for trying to ruin our wedding. Well, that is your choice." He hung up the phone and let out a long, heavy sigh. "What did she say?" I asked. "She was excited at first," he said. And then she immediately started making plans. How she was going to decorate the nursery at her house. How she would host the baby shower at the club. She said, "This is our chance to show everyone that we are a united family again." I felt a chill go down my spine. It was all about appearances. All about her. What did you say? I told her that before any of that could happen, she needed to apologize to you and to your father. A real, sincere apology. And? She said she had nothing to apologize for. Mark said, his voice flat. She said she did what any loving mother would do. And she said that if I was going to keep letting you poison my mind against her, then she guessed she would just have to wait until her grandchild was old enough to see the truth for themselves. It was the same old story. She was the victim. We were the villains. Nothing had changed. Nothing ever would. I am sorry, Mark, I said, putting my arms around him. Do not be, he said, holding me close. It is better this way. I think I needed to hear that one last time, to know for sure. Now I can finally let go. And he did. He mourned the loss of the mother he wished he had, and he accepted the reality of the mother he got. We moved forward, just the two of us, ready to become three. Our daughter, Lily, was born in the spring. She was perfect. She had my eyes and Mark's smile. My parents were completely besotted. My dad would hold her for hours, just staring at her tiny face, his eyes shining with love. George was a wonderful grandfather, too. He visited often, always bringing a silly toy or a new book. He never mentioned Eleanor, and we never asked. When Lily was 6 months old, a large package arrived at our house. There was no return address, but the postmark was from our town. Inside was an expensive, frilly baby dress, the kind Eleanor would love, and a silver rattle with the letter L engraved on it. There was a card. The handwriting was elegant and familiar. It said, "To my beautiful granddaughter, I hope one day you will know the truth. All my love, your grandmother." I read the card and felt a surge of anger. Even now, she was trying to plant seeds of poison, trying to create a future where she could turn our daughter against us. I showed the card to Mark. He read it, and his jaw tightened. Without a word, he took the dress, the rattle, and the card, put them back in the box, and walked it out to the trash can. "She does not get to do this," he said when he came back inside. "She does not get to be a secret keeper. She does not get to whisper in our daughter's ear. She made her choice." I had never loved him more than I did in that moment. We were a team. We were a family. And we were unbreakable. Life went on. Lily grew from a baby into a toddler, a whirlwind of giggles and clumsy steps. Our life was full and happy. The memory of Eleanor faded, becoming a strange story we would one day have to tell our daughter. A cautionary tale about a woman who let bitterness consume her. One day, I was at the park with Lily. She was trying to climb the slide, and I was spotting her. Another mom I knew from a playgroup, a woman named Karen, came and sat on the bench next to me. "It is so funny," she said, watching our kids play. "I was at the club for a luncheon yesterday, and I saw your mother-in-law." I stiffened. "Oh?" I said, trying to sound casual. "Yes," Karen said, oblivious to the history. "She was with some friends. She was showing them pictures on her phone. She was telling everyone it was her granddaughter, Lily. She had all these pictures of her. She was going on and on about how smart she is, how beautiful she is. She sounded like such a proud grandma." I stared at her, my blood running cold. "Pictures? What pictures?" "I do not know," Karen said with a shrug. "Just baby pictures. I guess you must send them to her." But we did not. We had never sent Eleanor a single photo of our daughter. I felt a wave of nausea. I quickly made an excuse and took Lily home. As soon as we were in the door, I went to Mark's social media page. It was private, locked down to only friends and family. But then I went to his father's page. George was so proud of Lily. He posted photos of her all the time. His page was public, and there they were. Dozens of pictures of my daughter. And in the comments section of every single one was a comment from Eleanor. "My beautiful Lily. Grandma loves you so much. Look at that smile. She gets it from our side of the family." She had been stealing the photos. She had been building a fake life online, pretending to be a doting, involved grandmother to her circle of friends. She was using my daughter as a prop to maintain her public image. The rage I felt was so intense, it made me dizzy. This was a violation I could not ignore. She had crossed the final line. I called Mark, my voice shaking with fury. "You are not going to believe what your mother is doing now." I explained everything. He was silent for a long moment, and then he said, "I will be home in 20 minutes. We are going to pay a visit to my father. And then we are going to end this. For good." This time, there would be no quiet confrontation. There would be no polite meeting. This time, it was war. She had come after my daughter. She was about to find out what a protective mother really looked like. And I was going to enjoy every second of her downfall. When Mark got home, his face was a thundercloud. He did not need any convincing. The violation of using our daughter, of creating a false narrative around her, was the final betrayal. "She is using Lily as a pawn in her social game," he said, his voice tight with fury. "She is pretending to have a relationship she has done nothing to earn and everything to destroy." We called George and asked if we could come over. We did not tell him why. We did not want to give Eleanor any time to prepare, to build her defenses, to craft a new set of lies. When we arrived, George greeted us at the door with a warm smile. "What a nice surprise," he said. Then he saw our faces. His smile faded. "What is wrong?" "Where is she, George?" Mark asked, his voice flat. "She is in the sunroom," he said, looking worried. "What has happened?" "She has happened," I said, walking past him into the house. We found her sitting in a wicker chair, reading a magazine, a glass of iced tea on the table beside her. She looked up as we entered, a flicker of surprise in her eyes, quickly masked by her usual look of disdain. "What is this?" she asked. "An ambush?" "You could call it that," Mark said, standing in front of her, blocking her exit. "We need to talk about your social media activity." A look of genuine confusion crossed her face. "My what?" "Your online life, Eleanor?" I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "The one where you are a loving, doting grandmother to a little girl you have never met." The color drained from her face. She knew she was caught. "I do not know what you are talking about." "Do not lie," Mark snapped. "We saw it. You have been stealing photos of our daughter from Dad's page and posting them as if they are your own. You have been building a fantasy for your friends, pretending you are a part of Lily's life." "I am her grandmother," she hissed, her voice rising. "I have a right to her pictures." "You have no rights," I shot back, my control finally snapping. "You gave up every right you had when you tried to destroy my family. You do not get to use my child as a social accessory. You do not get to pretend for your country club friends that you are anything other than what you are. A bitter, hateful woman who is completely alone." George had followed us into the room. He was listening, his face a mixture of shock and dawning horror. "Eleanor, is this true? Have you been taking the pictures I post?" She refused to look at him. She glared at me, her eyes filled with pure venom. "You did this to me," she spat. "You took my son. You took my grandchild. What else was I supposed to do?" "You were supposed to apologize," Mark yelled, his voice echoing in the large room. "You were supposed to take responsibility for your actions. You were supposed to try to be a decent human being. But you are not capable of that, are you? It is always someone else's fault. You are never wrong. You are so brainwashed by her," Eleanor said, her voice dripping with contempt as she looked at me. "No, Mom," Mark said, his voice suddenly calm, but colder than I had ever heard it. "I am not brainwashed. I just have my eyes open. For the first time in my life, I see you for who you really are, and I do not want you anywhere near my family." He turned to his father. "Dad, I am sorry to ask this of you, but you need to block her from your social media. And you need to make your account private. She cannot have access to Lily anymore, not even a picture." George looked at his wife, his face full of a deep, profound sadness. "I think that is for the best, son," he said quietly. He looked at Eleanor. This has to stop, Ellie. This obsession. This lie. You are destroying yourself. You are taking their side? She shrieked, turning on him. After all these years, you are choosing them over me? There are no sides, Eleanor, George said, his voice weary. There is just right and wrong, and you have been on the wrong side of that line for a very long time. That was when I saw it. The final, absolute defeat in her eyes. She had lost her son. She had lost her husband's support. She had lost her access to the fantasy life she had so carefully constructed. She had nothing left. I stepped forward. This is the last time we will have this conversation, Eleanor, I said, my voice firm and clear. You will not contact us. You will not try to see Lily. You will not use her image. If you violate this boundary again in any way, our next conversation will be with a lawyer about a restraining order. Do you understand me? She just stared at me, her mouth a thin, hard line. She did not answer. She did not have to. We both knew it was over. We turned and left. We did not look back. The next day, George made his social media private. All of Eleanor's stolen pictures of Lily vanished from the internet. The fantasy was over. A few weeks later, we heard from Mark's cousin that Eleanor and George had separated. He had moved out. He had finally had enough. The public facade of their perfect marriage, the last thing Eleanor had to cling to, was gone. She was now truly alone, in her big, empty house, with nothing but her bitterness for company. We never heard from her again. No more letters, no more packages, no more attempts to breach the wall we had built around our family. It was as if she had finally ceased to exist in our world. Years have passed. Lily is a bright, funny little girl who is the center of our universe. She knows she has 2 grandfathers who adore her, and 1 grandmother on my side. She has never asked about Mark's mother. There is no empty space in her life to fill. Her life is full of love. Sometimes, late at night, I think about Eleanor. I do not feel anger anymore. I do not feel hate. I just feel a kind of hollow pity. She had a choice at every turn to choose love, to choose family, to choose kindness. And every single time she chose herself. She chose her pride. She chose her anger. She wanted to stop my wedding to show Mark who I really was. But she ended up showing everyone who she was. In her desperate attempt to prove my family was built on a lie, she revealed that her entire life was the real fraud, and she paid the ultimate price for it. She lost everything that ever mattered. We did not have to destroy her. She did it to herself, and that is the most satisfying kind of justice there is. We moved on. We built a life of joy and truth. She was left behind, a ghost in her own life, haunted by the consequences of her own cruelty. We won, not by fighting, but by living well. And she lost, not because we defeated her, but because she defeated herself.